We're live.
Greetings, everyone. I am Noel Gordon, and I'm coming to you from ASI, Education Solutions International. We were here on Monday. We talked about literacy. We're here this evening to talk about math education. And we have a phenomenal presenter, which you'll hear a little bit about later on. But before I introduce Dr. Dice, our CEO, I'd like to just reiterate what I mentioned on Monday, that each month our goal is to provide you with two professional development opportunities. So next month, February, we are expecting to present on special education beyond compliance, creating meaningful experiences for students with special education needs. And we want to do two presentations, one on a Monday and one the same week, Wednesday. So please look out for that. We will be advertising that very, very soon. And we have two amazing speakers who have great experiences in the special education department. A few bits of information I'd like to share with you just before we turn over to Dr. Dice. Now, participants need to stay until the end of the workshop to receive the end of workshop survey. And of course, you will have 24 hours to complete that survey. If you intend to use this presentation for professional development hours, then you need to stay until the end and you must complete the survey. And for those who want to use, or to get a certificate to use for professional development hours, it's going to be a cost of $5 just to help to defray the costs. So you donate $5 to ESI through Zephy, and all that information is there in the email that you received when you register. All right. So during the workshop, if anyone has a question, please place it in the chat. If you're on Zoom or YouTube, you just place it in the chat and we will harvest those questions and we will see how our speakers is able to assist us in answering those questions. So without any further ado, at this time, I'm turning over to Dr. Dwayne Dice, our CEO, and he'll be saying a few words and then I'll introduce our speaker. I can't wait to hear her speak today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dr. Gordon, it's a real pleasure to be on the platform with you. My partner and collaborator and so on. In ESI, it's a great pleasure. Thank you so much. I want to say welcome to everybody. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone. It's good to see all people of the Caribbean, my people, and of course across the United States. So many of us who have signed up for this program this week. If it's not the literacy, then it's numeracy, it's mathematics. And we love these structured workshops because they provide a lot of little nuggets for you to put in your professional toolboxes. It's very important that you get these nuggets. And I also I'm saying thank you already to Miss um, Latoya Shukuya. I have to look up your last name, how to pronounce it. I hope I'm not damaging it. Miss Latoya Shukuya. She is very, very good. And I really, really encourage everybody to pay attention to what is imparted to you here this evening because of the eloquence and the expertise in that field by Latoya is really, really awesome. I want to say from ESI, founding ESI in 2022 and working a very, very hard work to get it up and running, and to this point that we can reach so many people across the Caribbean and Central America, and also across the US and Canada and Africa as well. I'm very privileged to be among all of you, doing what is necessary for our students and our teachers and principals to make sure that everything is in alignment with standards and standard-based education, and that we are learning the important history. Our foreparents fought very, very hard for us to be here, as free, totally free individuals. To we can make our own choices and do whatever we want to do. But in doing whatever we want to do, we really need to educate our young people to make sure that they understand history and they understand the fight for freedom and liberty for everybody in our region. Is really, really important. I want to caution everyone, because we have seen what has been going on in our world now. And so I encourage everybody that we really need to build community and to foster a sense of pride and unity and diversity, to celebrate diversity as much as possible, because it's everything that we are not, we complements us. If you look at a pot, and we love soup in Jamaica, we cannot use one ingredient to make soup. And that's what I'm talking about with diversity. Think of all of us as a pot of soup, a melting pot. The other thing I want to share with you really quickly is a phrase that I learned from reading a book recently. And it goes like this, that the most complete freedom is the strictest independence. The most complete freedom is the strictest independence. And so we have to go back to our values, go back to our principles, our people who taught us what is right and wrong, and take care of our people. It's really important. And that's what I want to leave with you this evening. The other part is to give you some directions. We will monitor YouTube, and we'll monitor Zoom chat. So when you're talking, make sure it's math related and you're engaging the presenter. And any question that you want to ask, we're asking you to drop it in the chat, or sometime closer to the end, because you want the presenter to go through what she has for all of us, and close to the end of it, when she's asking if you have any question and so on, one or two of you can raise your hand. Just raise your hand in Zoom, and we will acknowledge you so you can talk. Or whatever she wants you to do, directions wise. So listen carefully to her directions, and we will get the questions also from YouTube chat. So if you're on YouTube, we're monitoring YouTube. You can talk in YouTube chat, and we'll get the questions over to her as well. I want to thank our moderator for this evening, Dr. Noel Garden. He is our Chief Academic Officer for ESI, and he's doing a phenomenal job. Everything that he says that we're rolling out this year, some of them are very brand new, some of them are our staples, our staple workshops throughout the year, but he's doing a wonderful job trying to work with the systems and put workshops that are relevant in place. So very importantly, you need to stay until the end to get the end of workshop survey, because if you do not fill out that survey, even if you give us the donation of $5, we're going to ask you to fill out the survey before you get that certificate. It's very important. And we're working across the Caribbean with your unions and your associations, and even up to the Ministry of Education, to see how they can acknowledge or just make sure that they give you credit, award the credits for professional development hours that you're spending here with us. So make sure that you stay and fill out the end of course survey, or those certificates will be in jeopardy. Okay, thank you so much. And I'll be in the background listening just like all of you with everything that is going on, and I'll come back on later on with some questions. Take care, everybody, and I'm going to hand over back to our moderator, Dr. Gordon, to usher in our, I was going to say speaker, but she's our presenter and facilitator. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Dice. And when you speak in the chat, please say which country you're from. It's sort of so exciting. Last evening, Monday, we had participants from 10 Caribbean islands. Now, Latoya Shikuya is a mathematics educator and instructional leader with over a decade of experience and a strong commitment to equity and excellence in urban education. She began her career in alternative education, serving as a lead teacher before transitioning to traditional high school settings. She currently serves as a math supervisor in Patterson Public Schools, where she oversees mathematics instruction across 4 high schools with over 2,000 students, supporting about 30 math teachers through supervision, evaluation, coaching, and professional learning. Latoya holds a bachelor's degree in secondary education and mathematics from William Patterson University and a master's degree in teaching and learning in urban schools. As a lifelong learner rather, she's energized by continuous growth, collaboration, and improving teaching and learning outcomes. I just want you to know that Patterson Public School District is the third largest school district in the state of New Jersey. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you none other than Ms. Latoya Shikuya. Go ahead, Latoya.
Hello. Hello. It's such a pleasure to be with you all tonight. I'm excited and I hope you are too. We have some activities that we're going to be doing together, so we will be utilizing the task. I will, I need to share my screen so that we can get right into my presentation. And I am hoping that we're all have a good time tonight. Let's see. One second. Here we are. Okay. Okay, so our title for tonight is Math Strategies for Deeper Instructional Engagement, which is on the flyer. So you know why you're here today. We're going to be talking about math, 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 math. And me and some of the other ELA teachers and administrators, we always get into it that math is the best subject on the earth. So, well, we work well together. And today we're going to even see how ELA is important for even math itself. So the first question, I'm just going to dive in, and I want us to decide first how we are going to engage tonight. So this session offers multiple ways for you to connect with the content and make it relevant to your practice. So you can affirm your knowledge, which is validate your existing understanding of these strategies. You can expand your knowledge, discover new concepts and innovative approaches to math instruction. You can develop knowledge and confidence by strengthening your skills and boosting your assurance in applying these methods if you haven't already. You can inform pedagogy, refine your teaching practices with fresh insights and evidence-based techniques. Or you can apply. So you can plan for immediate implementation of these strategies in your classroom context, right? So at the end, I do want to share how you can get started with everything that we'll be discussing tonight. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to place this link in the chat so you can click on it. And I have the first question. In one word, how would you describe student engagement in math today? So you can click on the link. The code is also on the screen for you to put it in once you're prompted to. And then you can scan the QR code that's on the screen. All right. And once you're in, you can share your one word. Okay, we're seeing this in live time. And as you can see, some of the words are bigger than others. And what that means is that multiple people are putting in that same word. In big letters, right in the middle of the screen, I see the word challenging. I see I see engaging also. I'm seeing some good words as well. Enthusiastic, excited, interactive, exhausted, uninterested, limited, active, exciting, frustrating, right? And then I see like the smaller ones too. Lukewarm, someone said fun. I love to see the positive words too, but we're gonna have to talk about the challenging and the limited and the frustrating parts of this because like you can see, it is one of the biggest words that's on here, which means that there's a number of people on here that feel the same way. All right, so I'm going to take a pause on that and go back into my presentation. Okay. All right. So, like I said, I saw a lot of words: challenging, frustrating, uninterested, but then some engaging, then some excited. So, I what I realized too is that sometimes this may even be based off of grade levels, right? So I'm here, I haven't necessarily been in the kindergarten classroom as a teacher, but even talking to other learners, they'll always say, I loved math until this grade. And once algebra came into it, then I got discouraged. I got confused and all of that. So I'm guessing that could be why some of the words are, different in expression. But we're going to talk about this today. And I lost the chat. Let me see if I could get it back. Ay, ay, ay. 1 second. Okay. All right. So let's get into it. So the instructional landscape that we're navigating. So based on observation, um, we saw all of these words: challenging, frustrating, uninterested, limited. And all of these words contribute to maybe the engagement that we're seeing in our classroom, right? The engagement that's decreasing significantly when math feels abstract or disconnected from our students, right? So many students can follow procedural steps, but struggle when they're asked to explain their thinking or apply the mathematics in a different way, or even transfer the learning beyond the immediate lesson. These patterns point to reasons why we may need to start to think about how we can begin to change our instruction so that students are getting a different experience when they're in our math classrooms. So some challenges that I think that we can all agree on here is that a lot of our students have gaps in their foundational understanding. Once they sometimes get to high school, we're wondering, where did the gaps start? And then from there, we know that the concepts continuously start to build on top of each other. And then from there, it's like, some students give up. And that creates also the math anxiety that we're seeing as well. Students are afraid of being wrong, and their math identities begin to be shaped in a negative way where they are, based on their past experiences, they shut down. Then we have difficulty connecting math to real life. How often have you heard a student say in your class, when will I use this in my life? Right? You could give me a thumbs up if you've heard that question before in your class. When will I use this in my life? Right? Math feels abstract, disconnected from, like I said, from their lives and their experiences. We have an over reliance on rote learning. So that's just memorizing formulas, memorizing the steps, without any opportunity to really explain why this matters or why my answer to the formula that I use, why does it matter? Managing wide range of abilities. Our classrooms are getting more and more diverse with the range of abilities that's in one room. So you have some students that are beyond grade level, we have some students that are on grade level, and then we have students that have not attained the skill set to for the grade level material that you're trying to teach them. And then we have this continuous battle here with the curriculum and all of the standards, all of the skills that we have to teach throughout a school year. And we're unable to really have time to really go deeper in concepts that we believe students should know, really know before they leave. And then lastly, we have this belief that math is innate, right? So you're either a math person or you're not, right? My grandmother was good at math. My auntie was good at math, and I'm good at math. So therefore, my child would be good at math. And then some people just say, oh, my mom was never a math person. So they automatically attach themselves to that belief and shut down forever and say, math was never my thing. Math is not my thing. So that is something that we want to, that we are experiencing in our classrooms. And then, not only that, with these challenges, we sometimes want to teach the same way, right? And we're going to call that the traditional approach tonight, right? So some common patterns with the traditional approaches: procedures are taught before the meaning is established. Students rely on memorized steps. Mistakes are avoided rather than explored as learning opportunities. What is the answer? We get the answer and then we keep on moving. The result of that is that learning becomes fragile and context dependent. Students disengage when problems look different than what they've practiced. Mathematical confidence remains low and anxiety often increases. So why does this not work anymore? The world has changed. Now, when I talk about the pre-COVID world and the post-COVID world, right? Those two worlds are two different things. And that's also, we're seeing that in our education, in our classrooms, and in just the world in general. There's careers now that require problem solving, data analysis, and you have to be flexible. Technology has shifted the game completely, right? All you need is a calculator. All you need is chat GPT, all of these AI tools that we're using. The answers are all at our fingertips. Procedural knowledge alone isn't enough. Student needs conceptual understanding, right? So I'm going to go into, again, what has changed. The access to information. We talked about technology. Before, teachers were used as the source of knowledge, and memorization was used to access knowledge, to remember knowledge. Now we have the phones, like I said, you can look up formulas, you can look up procedures. So now the value is not in the what, but it's the why, the how, the when, right? So we're able to make these decisions with the information that we have. Like I said before, we have diverse student populations. So they also need a flexible, inclusive instructional approach. The one size fits all approach is not working anymore. And then we also have complex problems, real world challenges require modeling, estimation, justification, a lot of data, right? Even when it comes to social media and trends, business, all of those things, it's a lot of data, right? And now engagement expectations. The students need to engage in order to really learn because they can easily shut down if they're not engaged. All right, so this calls for a shifting. This calls for a shifting, right? What does that look like? We're moving from the traditional approach to more of a student-centered experience where we once gave algorithm first, right? We gave the formula, we gave how to do this. Now we're talking about the concept, the why. We're building the understanding. Why is this necessary for what we're doing? What does this apply to? And then not only that, now we're talking about multiple approaches to something, right? I don't have to solve this one way. I can solve this in multiple ways, which also gives a chance for students that think differently. Teacher-centered, where we're talking about teachers that are lecturing for a whole class period. Are students listening? Are they engaged during that time? Right? So we will move from teacher-centered learning classrooms to more of a student-centered, where now the teacher becomes the facilitator, right? Asking questions, probing thinking for students to collaborate, experience, design, justify, to explain, right? Students are more doing the work in this, right? Teachers prepare their questions and all of that. We'll talk more about that later, while the students are really doing the thinking in the classroom. And then we talk about abstract practice and relevant application. So connecting mathematics to authentic context and problems. So this shifting, we're talking about 21st century learning. It's 21st century learners, right? Where we're talking about critical thinking, we're talking about collaboration, we're talking about problem solving, right? So this shift begins to nurture and develop these young thinkers, these young learners that are in our classrooms to begin to become the next generation of our society. These are the thinkers, these are the people that we are putting into, that we're nurturing and developing to be the next Noel Gordon, the next Dr. Dwayne Dice, right? That are going to be creating these opportunities, these educational platforms and all of that for the next generation, right? So we have to begin to think of the future and what we want to see for our students. Okay, so the first thing that I want to, let me talk about this slide quickly. But this shift accomplishes exactly what I just said, but we're talking about deeper conceptual understanding and increasing student voice, right, as a whole, and effective support for all learners and reduce memorization dependence. So the first thing that I want to do with you all today, I hope you have a pen, a pencil, and a sheet of paper, a napkin, something in front of you that you can start to, put your thoughts down. All right. And if you're ready to go, give me a thumbs up. Oh, I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. So we're ready. We're ready to do some math tonight. Okay. So here we go. I have a question for you. So I have a task. You have 24 square tiles. How many different rectangles can you build using all 24 tiles? After you've done that, the next question is, which rectangle of the ones that you have uses the least fencing, right? So we're imagining like our rectangle as a plot of land where we're going to put some fencing up. Which one would require the least amount of fencing? And be ready to explain your thinking. So in this moment, I'm going to give you about a minute or so, and I'm going to put it on my timer here so that you can engage with this question. All right, and once you've started to do your some thinking, I want you to type in the chat that you started. Okay, I see a few started. How many different rectangles do you have? Okay, I'm going to be quiet so that you can think. I don't want the answer yet. I just want you to think. And then I'm going to ask you the next question. We have about 10 more seconds. Okay, so before you give me an answer, I want you to tell me, how did you start this task? Type one of the following frames in the chat to share your initial approach. So you're saying I drew what, right? So the dot, dot, dot means that you're going to finish the frame, finish the sentence. So I see a few people drew, I see a few people calculated, I see a few people listed factor pairs. So we all kind of started one way, right? So give me a thumbs up if you started one way and then ended up doing something else. Did you start one way and end up doing something else? And then what I also want to highlight is maybe even as you were writing in the chat, maybe that even gave someone else an idea of how they can start or how they can end. Okay, so I did ask you another question, and I did see a few answers in here that people drew 4 rectangles. Now, the second question is, explain your thinking. Which rectangle uses the least fencing? So use the sentence frame again. I think blank uses the least fencing and why? Which of these 4 rectangles uses the least amount of fencing? So I'm seeing some answers here, but I'm not seeing the why for all of them. Okay, so I'm seeing 4 by 6. I'm seeing, I think 4 squares in the middle uses less fencing. 4 by 6, 4 by 6, 4 by 6, 8 by 3. So I'm seeing 2 different perspectives here, but 4 by 6 seem to be winning here. All right. So in the classroom, I would say, how many of us agree with 4 by 6? Raise your hand. Right? So I'm getting everyone involved here. And then now I'll probably say, can I have a volunteer to show us why 4 by 6 could be the smallest? And then I have some people here that said 3 by 8. I see 3 by 8. Can I have another volunteer to show me why 3 by 8 could have the smallest fencing? All right. So at that moment, I'm also giving students the opportunity to share their thinking. And then at the end, for all of us to make a decision, right? So, what do you think about this task? So, this task, also, I can even go further with it, right? So, let's think again and say, why does, the same question, why does it use less fencing than 3 by 8? And then someone in the chat already said it has the smallest perimeter, right? And we could keep on going. Okay, does this look the same for all types of tiles, right? What if I had 36 tiles? What if I had 48 tiles? And I can keep on building on this task. This task that I presented is called a low floor, high ceiling task. Accessible entry for everybody. If you notice, as we were, the first question that I presented to you, where we said, I drew, I listed, I calculated, everyone was able to enter, access this question at different points, right? It wasn't just one way of entry. And then, not only that, I can keep on extending this question more and more with the students, even depending on my higher level students, and I can keep on probing them and giving them more opportunities to engage with the same task, but to keep on extending it. And then we also talked about mathematical discourse. We were able to engage. I think everyone was able to participate because of the opportunities given for discussion, right? So if we were in a smaller setting in a classroom, I gave you some scenarios of how we can talk about agreeing with each other, or we disagree. We can talk to your neighbor about this task. What do you think is happening? So as students are communicating with each other, they're also refining their thinking, right? Because I think some of us even changed our answers after we saw what was going on in the chat and as people were talking, yeah? We changed some of our answers. So it's not about right or wrong here. It's about creating a community, creating a culture of learning where we're all learning from each other and everyone is involved. Everyone is participating, right? And it talks to the type of task, the type of questionings that we're using. So I'm going to talk a little bit about low floor, high ceiling, and I'm going to talk about the mathematical discourse, right? And I'm going to talk about productive struggle tonight. And I'm going to talk about the last thing, relevant math tasks. So we were able to engage a little bit with the first one, but I want to give you some context to it. And then you'll also be able to see what websites you can have that are readily available for you to use this in your classroom right away. Okay, so low floor, high ceiling tasks. What does this look like? We were able to all engage with this type of task. What does this look like in practice? Exactly what I said. The task is designed so all students can enter and begin to work. I think we all kind of grabbed a piece of paper, we grabbed something to start to, figure out, okay, how many squares can I make, right? Any student can enter in to that task and begin to start thinking, whether it's by drawing, whether it's by listing, whether it's by calculating, oh, I know my factors, so I can begin there, right? Built-in opportunities for extension and deeper challenge. We saw that you can keep on extending the problem for any higher level students, or even for the students to keep on engaging with the task. There's emphasis on explaining, thinking, and justifying the solution. So even in the sentence stem that was provided, you couldn't just answer, oh, well, it's this, it's 3 by 8. Why? Why are we saying this? And a lot of us in the chat start to say, okay, because the perimeter is this, because I'm able to, some of you even gave me how you evaluated the perimeter, right? So there were multiple ways that people started to tell me what they knew and what they were able to figure out based on that question. So again, multiple solution pathways and representations were welcomed, right? So even let's say talking about the rectangles, I may even have a student come up, right, to show, okay, how did you come up with these rectangles that you have? Right? And then that can also, again, to begin to create this culture of where students are sharing, they're explaining, and we are discussing, we're evaluating, we're doing all this. I'm gonna hear me say all of these words tonight, explain, 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 because what I'm finding is that a lot of students may do what we asked them to do, but now we're saying, okay, can you explain that? And they'll say, no, I don't know how to explain it. So I'm stressing this explanation piece because we want students to be able to understand what we're teaching them. And it's not about just repeating what I just did. It's about what is your understanding of what I just did? And how can you communicate that, right? So these students support mixed ability classrooms where we have the higher level students, we have our lower level students, and we have that middle ground, right? And it also doesn't take away from the rigor of the question itself or the expectations. Every student can contribute something meaningfully, right? So you can do this in any grade band, right? So this is not only for high school kids or middle school students. You can find tasks that invites everyone in your class to participate. right? So I was able to put in a K through 2. I knew we were going to have a variety of grade bands on here tonight. So these are some examples, but like I said, I am providing some websites that you can go and get a ready-made task for you that you can begin to implement in your classroom right away, right? So again, I'll just look at this K through 2. How many ways can you show 10 using counters? So we have our low floor, that's the LF that we have here, and they're using 2 numbers to do this. But how can I extend this for my higher level students? I can keep on extending it. Okay, and so now let's use 3 numbers. Can we use different operations now, right? Plus or subtraction. So begin to start thinking, okay, how can I get everyone involved here? All right, and same thing with even the stacking cups, right? So they can you can bring in stacked cups to your classroom, right? And make it more real for your students so that they can build the tower, build it and see for themselves what is happening and record, right? So they're able to see it in real life and be able to apply it to the math that they have in front of them. So even after doing that, then you can extend it into relationships, linear relationship. Is there a relationship here? What are we seeing? What is happening? And students are beginning to think, okay, what is the pattern here, right? And this is an entry that many students can begin to that they can start from seeing a pattern, right? So I'm not asking you to evaluate, I'm not asking you to graph, I'm asking you to see a pattern first so that we can begin to start here and then to build. All right, and then strategy 2, we have mathematical discourse. Mathematical discourse. So I mentioned before about the traditional approach, which is usually more of, like I said, the teacher lecturing throughout the entire, majority of the time that the students are in class. And the students are maybe they're copying notes, they, do examples 1 through 15, and they're practicing and they're doing it, and the classroom is quiet. You can hear a pin drop in the room. And, I feel that some teachers can get a little uncomfortable when students are talking and there's different things going on in the room. When it's quiet, then it's comfortable. When it's a little chaotic, it can get uncomfortable for some math teachers. But we can also have a structured unquiet, loud classroom where we can still have some structure, but the students are engaging in a different way so that we can see that they're actually talking the math. They are explaining things to each other. They're using the math vocabulary. And as they're explaining it to each other, and then you as the teacher, you're there to say, do we agree with this? Do we agree with Mary? Do we agree with Latoya? How many of us agree? Why don't you agree? What is happening? And then we begin to build this classroom of ideas to where we can then make a decision on whether or not we agree with this or this is the right way to go. So in mathematical discourse, students explain their thinking, they articulate their reasoning, they're justifying solutions, and making their math thinking visible to others. They're writing things down. They're showing you their work. They're not just, a lot of students love to say, oh, I just did it in my head, right? So I just did it in my head. No, I want to see how you did this. Can you draw it out for me? Can you write it down so I can see exactly what's happening here? And if there's a misconception somewhere, then I can actually address it, or another student can begin to, talk about it, and we can just address these misconceptions together as a class. Students question and challenge ideas. So respectful, again, questioning deepens understanding as students compare strategies, they defend their approaches. And then the teacher is here not just as the answer giver. But we're here to facilitate these learning experiences for our students in the classroom, right? So a learning experience where we are providing questions, we're providing connections. Okay, how did whatever Javon said, how did that connect to what Latoya said? Let's make these connections and start to, build what even the conjecture is for what I'm trying to teach you as we go deeper and move forward in our class. So as we are talking about mathematics, it strengthens the understanding more effectively than silent practice. And this course doesn't really require any materials or technology. It just requires the skillful use of the questionings of the teachers of how we are going to start here, start with your idea, and how we are going to move and navigate to where we need the students to be as far as the concept is concerned. All right. So can we implement mathematical discourse? We can use, like I said, there's a lot of structures out there. And the one I want to highlight that I really enjoyed doing as a teacher was the think, pair, share, which is simply you allow the students to think on their own for a minute. And then they can pair up with a partner to discuss their thinking, right? And flesh out the ideas, flesh out, if there's something that they did differently or I did differently. And in this, again, you are coaching your students on how to even talk to each other, right? Because if it's funny, like with my teachers, I'm telling them, you can't just tell them, okay, everybody get in a group and talk about your ideas. Some students, they don't know how to, begin the sentence or begin to explain, what did you get? Okay, I got this. And then the conversation is done. So as you saw in the task that I presented before, I gave you all sentence stems to begin the conversation. If we were in the classroom, this is how we would begin to, our navigation to wherever we're going with the task, so that everybody has a starting point on how they're going to explain their responses, right? So I agree with blank because blank and all of that. So I'm intertwining that even with the think, pair, share, that you would use the sentence stems even as you're telling the students to think and then pair up, right? So while they pair up, they're using the sentence stems to explain their work and to, discuss the problem. And then after that, then after they agree, and you know what? During this time, I think this pair up time is so crucial because students are refining their responses too. As they're talking, they're saying, oh, and why? Why did you say that? Oh, now I get it. There's something that kind of happens. And for some reason, and I always say this, that when the students talk to each other, one student can repeat the same thing that you just said in the classroom, but when their friend says it to them, then all of a sudden they understand, right? I don't know how many of you, has that happened to you? Where all of a sudden, because my friend told me, now I get it, even though you've been repeating yourself for forever. So there's something that happens with that pair instruction where students begin to develop and reframe whatever it is that they're thinking, and we could go a little bit deeper in their conceptual understanding. So once they even flesh it out, they're thinking with each other, this also begins to build some confidence in sharing out. Okay, I'm not, solely dependent on myself in this moment. I actually talked to somebody about it. We both agree. So even now, okay, I have a little bit more confidence to share out what I was thinking. So this invites even more participation in your classroom, and it kind of decreases the math anxiety that can happen with students to actually want to answer a question in class by themselves. So, and then as the teacher, you are really, as you're, you don't want to end the mathematical discourse right away. You want to keep on, you want to get everyone involved. You want to be able to solicit responses from everyone in the class. I know we always have those voices in the room, those dominant voices that always want to tell you the answer. And you say, hold on a second, I want to hear from someone else. I feel like this gives us an opportunity to give everyone an opportunity to share. And it also gives them time to think, right? Because sometimes those dominant voices is, right away, you don't even finish the question and they're already ready to answer, right? We also have to think about those students that need probably another 30 seconds to, not even maybe 5 seconds, to get their thinking together and then to be able to participate in what's happening. So as a teacher, you're revoicing, you're saying, okay, what I'm hearing is this. Why does this work? How does this connect to what Javon said? And guide the students to deepening their reasoning and connecting their ideas. So mathematical discord, I think this is my favorite one, only because I love when students are talking to each other. And again, it's been tested and proven that once the students are talking about it, there's definitely more engagement happening and a deeper understanding is also happening in your class. So when you see that, don't be afraid of it, but you have to start embracing that in your room as well. Okay. All right, so strategy 3, we have productive struggle. And what productive struggle is, students are engaging in thinking before they're being shown the procedures. So we're giving them time, like I was talking about before, we're giving students time to begin to think on the problem. The problem may be challenging, and sometimes it's hard for teachers to pull back and allow the students to struggle, but that also builds the confidence that they need. So the wait time increases and it gives students to grapple with ideas, they make attempts, and maybe the first time it may not be where you're going. How many times, well, for me, I've taken a class once, failed it, took it again, and did amazing. And I think about that experience and I say the first time I didn't necessarily understand it, but maybe the next day, the next 2 days, I'll probably understand it then. Or if I had more time to think about it, to think through it, or to revisit it again, I'll be able to begin to think differently of it and then to begin to learn it. So I think about that experience, and I feel like even with productive struggle, it also touches on a growth mindset where we're talking. I think the presenter on Monday, he talked about asset asset thinking, asset growth, right? So I know it connects to growth mindset, right? Where we're thinking of growth and not failure is not the end, right? We keep on revisiting, we keep on moving, we keep on growing. And sometimes when we focus on the right answer all the time, students begin to count themselves out as failures. Asset-based mindset. Thank you. Asset-based mindset. So we have to start thinking of what do I have what does my student have that can contribute to my class, right? Instead of what don't they have that's messing up my lesson. So begin to think about that even when it comes to productive struggle. So I have a question. Do you know what the average wait time is for teachers? So basically, that is when I ask a question and then I give students the opportunity to respond. Do you know what the average wait time for teachers are? Someone said 10 seconds. Anyone else know? 5 seconds. 2 minutes, 8 seconds. 3 seconds. 1 second. Okay, so I'm seeing a bunch of different responses in the chat, And the surprise for me was that it was zero point 0.7 of a second. 0.7 of a second. And it's the average, right? So yes, there are teachers that they ask a question and right away they answer it. Right away. Right away. So even with that, that shows that, we need to probably start to think about how much time are we giving students to struggle with the math, right? Good struggling, like, where we're giving them the support that they need, but they are able to see a challenge and go for it, right? And initially, it's never going to be very nice and polished in the beginning, right? You're gonna have some resistance with it, but you have to build that culture for your students to where, okay, this is a classroom where we see challenges and we overcome them, right? We don't shut down and we keep on pushing forward. And I'm here to support you. I am here as your teacher to give you the support you need to get to where you're going. All right, so some teacher questions have been, what have you tried, right? So, we right away want to give the answer, but have to keep on giving them some probing questions. What can you try next? All right. So even what can you do next? What are you thinking? Let's sit down and let's talk it through. All right. You can even get a small group together and say, okay, you have something and you have something. Let's see how this is, getting towards the goal that we have. So it builds perseverance. It develops positive math identity. The success through struggle builds genuine confidence and mathematical self-efficacy. So students will say, oh my goodness, I actually did this. I got through this. And that begins to build their confidence in your classroom. And it strengthens problem solving, right? When they see a challenge, and not just in the classroom, but just on a day-to-day basis, they can begin to develop that resilience from just being in your class, right? So there's things we love to teach math, but there's some there's some character things that we can build even in our classrooms with our students. Okay. How am I doing with time? Okay, good. All right, so I have one last task. This is the last thing I'm going to ask you guys to do tonight. And I want you to think about the question that's presented before you. So you need to travel 10 miles across the city. Which option is best and why? Which option is best and why? So I'm going to give you 1 minute to think through these options that you have here.
And Latoya, while they're thinking through, we could go until maybe 7:15, and then you're open for questions.
Yes. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of different responses in the chat. I'm seeing car, I'm seeing ride share, I'm seeing bus, I'm seeing all different ones. So I want you to, again, some of us are saying why, some of us are just giving a choice. I want you to also tell me why. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot because of cost, because of time. Is there a right or wrong answer here? Is there a right or wrong answer? So even during this type of question, I'll begin to ask, okay, so but how much does it cost? What were we able to do? Why? Why is your response that? Right? So this is a question where it depends on you, right? So which factor was mattered most in your decision here? Some people it was time. Some people it was cost. Some people it was convenience, right? So as the learner, you were able to decide, make a decision based off of your own perspective here, right? But you, for question number two, thinking as the teacher, what made, can you see how this could possibly build discussion in our classrooms? Can you see how students could probably debate on this, right, in our room, right? Again, they are able to engage with this in a different way. So as a teacher, I want you to put your teacher hat on. What made this question engaging? Yes, debate, not quarrel. So I'm seeing critical thinking, I'm seeing real life situation, reasoning, what was best for me. We can share an answer. It's a discussion, all of those different points, right? So this question in itself even touches on what we discussed today, mathematical discourse, right? And we entryway. Everyone is able to access this question some way, right? And then now what I wanted to I think someone else put it in the chat that it is a real life situation. So the last one that I'm going to be talking about before we pause is making math relevant in your classrooms, right? That I believe is one of the best ways to get students to engage in your classroom, right? What are they talking about? Right? Even now I'm like, oh, I'm getting older. I don't know what these kids are talking about nowadays, but you have to make the effort to see what are they talking about. Listen in, ask questions. What are their hobbies? What are they into? Do your own research. And it could simply be, changing up a question, right? Instead of it being, oh Lord, see, what are the kids doing? So instead of it, I know I've seen some outdated questions that are talking about CDs, right? Nobody's using CDs anymore, right? So Apple Music, are you using Apple Music or Spotify, right? What music streaming platform are you on? All right. How many songs do you stream a day? Like how many songs are you listening to a day? I know that kids will automatically connect with that. Okay, let's build a graph or let's build some type of table to determine what's happening in our classroom. You're getting the students to engage. And I'm simply just removing CDs out of my problem and I'm putting in music streaming, right? So I'm still using the resource that I have, but now I'm making it applicable and relevant to what the students are doing and what they're into, right? So this answers the question of why does this matter? All right, so I'm gonna end here, right? I'm going to show you guys this. You could take a screenshot of this with your phone, right? These are ready-made tasks and resources that are available and ready to be used right away. You go in and you see, what topic am I teaching? How can I get the students engaged? Oh, this problem looks good. It has, some of them even have scripts that you can use, because as you're engaging with some of newer ways of getting students involved, sometimes it could be uncomfortable, right? How can I say this? What type of questions can I use? And you can use even the tools that we have for AI and say, okay, these are the questions that I can use for this particular question. Okay. And before I hand over to Dr. Noel Gordon, I want you to think about what we discussed today and think about what shift would most improve your classroom right now for student engagement. And not only that, once you think about that, is what commitment can you make in the next week or two to begin to start implementing it? And it's not, I'm just changing up everything in my classroom. You one step at a time, and see what that does to change the culture of your classroom. Okay, thank you.
Amazing. Latoya, I'm going to impose on you for just 1 minute before we take the questions. I know Dr. Dice is waiting to take the questions. Many years ago, I have to tell this story very quickly. Many years ago, when I served as director of curriculum and instruction for my school district, Latoya was a young teacher in that school district, teaching the alternative setting, challenging students. And I was tasked with the responsibility to do her observation. And I went into that classroom, and Latoya, I want you to take just 1 minute and share with them, because she got very few teachers received a perfect score from me for the observation. She received a perfect score from me. Could you just take maybe a minute at most and tell them how you executed that lesson with those special needs students, and you have perfect attention, classroom management was perfect?
What did I do? So that was very long ago, but I do remember the students going around the classroom, and I picked out different
Groceries.
scenarios for them where they had to go shopping, right? So they had to determine which which item would be the better option for them, right? Which one would be cheaper for their budget that they received, right? So they were going around and doing all that. I think they did work together on that. And again, they had to make decisions, right? So we're talking about 21st century learning. They had to collaborate. There was like different scenarios that they had to do, but they had to make a decision, right? And that's what we were trying to build with those students back in those times.
Thank you so much, Latoya. I've referenced that lesson in so many of my presentations. I'm glad to have you here. Okay, thank you. Dr. Dice, you have some questions for Latoya?
I don't see much of a question here. I want to really say thank you because this is very enjoyable. As a math teacher and science myself, it's really remarkable with the conversation. And I love the fact that you let them write in complete sentences, because that's what I normally would do years ago when I was teaching, especially fifth and sixth grade. Let them write it, and that helped develop their expression and writing expression too. So that's very good. All right, can we take Shanice Ferguson? Can we take her?
Could you take on the PowerPoint now? I don't think you need it again. Latoya, thanks.
Oh no, she I hope everybody scan her QR code.
Okay.
So Shanique Ferguson, you have a question or comment you want to make?
No, sir, sorry.
Oh man, we thought we had you on there. Um, well, my question is, what about when you're talking about having a classroom with 25 students, 30 students, especially across the Caribbean, we're talking here, and in America, we have quite a bit of students in some classrooms. How do you go about planning for them if you have varying abilities in a math class? How do you go about planning it in terms of the academic variations in their ability? And then the other part of the question is, how do you go about planning if you have behavioral problems too, especially among a lot of our not well boys to like nice to jump up and run around and do whatever they want to do. How do you go about catering for that as well with the behavior?
So when it comes to various abilities in the classroom, there's something, well, we would reference small group instruction, right? So you can group your students according to levels, right? And give them varied tasks. You can also, there is another thing that I've been working on where we talk about level task, right? So if you have a grade level content task that would be, let's say, considered a level 4, in math, you can kind of scale back to a level 3, make it a level 3, a level 2 differentiation. I'm seeing it in the chat where you are using that to also engage the students, right? So if you're at a level 1, let's start here, right? And again, that also speaks to your classroom culture, right? You have to be able to build that rapport with your students to say, okay, this is where I'm at, and this is where I want to get to, right? So level task is one way. Small group instruction, you can have a varied amounts of tasks again in the classroom where the higher level students, they're working on a task together, right? So you won't necessarily, they're working together, and then you may even have one group that maybe you are focused in on to work with, kind of like a, one-on-one type of scenario. And then you have your middle group, and you kind of give students what they can do, and you'll walk around and facilitate in that way. And then when it comes to the behavior issues, I always say that if students are engaged, usually they are willing to do the work that you give them, right? Once you grab them, once you hook them, sometimes that's where they begin to do work for you, right? So if it's just, quiet, sit down, everybody, this sometimes that, you have to have a variety of experiences in your classroom, right? Based on you knowing your students and being able to experience, give them different experiences with the content that you're teaching.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Um, let's see here. All right. So, yeah, Janice is asking about strategies. What was the first strategy shared? She wanted to go back to the first one that you talk about.
Oh, the first one was based on the task that we started with, and it's
Yes.
called low floor, high ceiling task, which is it gives everyone an access point to start the question, right? So that's where we talk about low floor, but then you also have the opportunity to keep on extending to higher level thinking questions.
All right. So let's talk about, like, briefly share this relating to cross-curricular activities where some people might say, well, how does that relate to math if you're doing reading and writing? How does that relate to math in social studies and science? Not so much science, but cross-curricular planning and thinking and working with other teachers and actually working in your classroom so that your students can do better in the other subject areas. How do you plan for that as a math teacher in your math classroom? And this could be high school as well, where there's subject teaching.
So, there is really some opportunities, even in the resources that we have, where they do bring in some historical contexts for math questions, science, of course. And what that takes is really some collaboration between the teachers. You can develop a project where you'll have a math portion of it, you'll have a historical portion of it, and ELA, of course, I even showed that with the sentence stems tonight, that ELA is very important in math to be able to explain what you're thinking, and that's a part of the mathematical process as well. So it would require some collaboration for teachers, and I think the best way would be through even a project or some type of real world type of question. And I think data is even something that that is expanding in the world itself. So there's so many ways that you can bring in these other concepts into data analysis.
All right. Dr. Gordon?
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you,
So
Dr. Dice. Great questions.
we do, there are people here posting now. They're beginning to post. You can read some from the chat here. They're
Okay.
starting to post questions.
You want to read something? I'm not getting to the chat at the
All
minute.
right, let me go. Let me go quickly. How can Alicia said that asking how can I engage a student who says he or she does not want to learn about math and shuts down in your math class?
So even for that student, we talked about getting to know your students, right? So some students may not see the connections right away if they're not presented. So even if we get to see how they are experiencing math in different ways in their regular day-to-day, that can probably be an entry point for some sort of interest to begin to start learning the math that you're trying to teach them. So again, learning your students, what are they into? And maybe you can begin to see how they can engage with something that is relevant.
Yeah. I like that because I would do surveys on my students at the beginning of the year
Mhm.
and even throughout to talk to them. So that's a good approach. Let's see who else. Um, do you collaborate or co-teach with related service professionals, example, occupational therapists, with kindergartners? I don't know how to
Um,
respond.
uh, no, I haven't done that yet.
How do you move parents to the post-COVID teaching? Because in the Caribbean, we are traditional parents, where traditional parents may feel like you're not working in the classroom because they don't see the notes and 15 examples in exercise or workbooks. What do you suggest?
So again, like that can be a shock to some parents, especially because it's not something that they haven't seen before. And like I said, one step at a time, right? So you can have a balance of, still you're taking the note, the students could take the notes, and then they're still doing different types of tasks in the classroom, right? And then with that being said, the parent can begin to see even how the students are beginning to interact with that, and then they can begin to see it differently to where it's, oh wow, my daughter came home and was talking about what they did in math class today, and she was very excited about it, and they'll begin to become more open to this different style.
All right, okay.
I
All
like what
right.
Michelle said too. Get parents involved by allowing them to participate in workshops, right? So being able to experience the math differently can then also begin to see the benefits of it. Like, oh wow, when I was in school, I didn't have this and I wasn't able to really participate, but now I'm able to see it differently and experience it in a different way, and I feel good about it.
Mhm.
So I agree with that as well, Michelle. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a good one. It's a very good one. Um, I normally, and I wanted to talk briefly about this with collaborative planning, because some teachers don't really like to plan with other teachers. Once they get their
Mhm.
classroom, it's their world, you know. Or how is it useful, even if we don't like it? Not just introvert people want to be by themselves. Some introverts are awesome. And the school environment. What
Mhm.
are some of the things that are reasons you would encourage collaborative planning, even if you have your own classroom in elementary school and in high school, when it's subject-based teaching, where you don't really have to talk to anybody except just go in and teach your math and leave. You know, how important it is to collaborate when you're planning.
So this is an interesting question because when I first started working in the schools where I am now, the collaborative culture wasn't necessarily there, right? So I had to kind of, I don't want to say force it, but I had to create opportunities for teachers to get together by course, right? So I'm teaching Algebra 1, we're all teaching Algebra 1, um, and to see the benefits of it. So, you know, even being on an island by yourself, you're doing all of this work when you can even share some of the responsibilities when it comes to creating exams, right? Creating resources that are standards based or based on test prep and all of that. Like now we have shared drives where teachers are dropping in resources and sharing together. I'm just saying, wow. Can you imagine? Yes, someone said less time consuming. There's so much benefit to working together. Like even this year, this is taking some years to, for teachers to get comfortable. But one thing that I found even this year was one teachers have been going into each other's classrooms. And that's a big deal for me to go and say, okay, wow, like, as they're talking together and they're saying, okay, what are you doing? What am I doing? And then it's like, oh, wow, I never tried this before, right? So in discussion, you begin to say, oh, wow, I want to know what that looks like. Can I visit your classroom? And then it becomes this real professional learning community where teachers are learning from each other and collaborating, and it creates a stronger culture
Mhm.
for the mathematics education itself, where we're all leaning on each other and growing together, and iron sharpens iron. So it's very beneficial. And
Dr. Gardner, you're back.
Yes, sir. Okay, you ready for me? You're holding space for me.
Yeah, I
Thank
want
you,
to
Doc.
drop the
Yeah,
link in
thank you,
the
Dr. Dice.
yes.
You're able to ask some very pertinent questions. Once a teacher, always a teacher. So, Miss Latoya Shikuya, thank you so much on behalf of Education Solutions International and the participants from across the Caribbean. You did an excellent job, and we're very proud of you. And please note that this is only the beginning. There will be many more more collaborations with
Dr.
you.
Gordon, before you end, I do have a handout. Just for anyone that missed the first strategy and all of that, I have it all for you on a document, and with some links that, like I said, the relevant tasks and all of those things that you can use to begin to start these strategies in your classroom. So I want to share it in the chat here,
Yeah,
and they
or
can.
we can share it. We'll send it out with the
Okay,
email
perfect.
that we send out
Yes,
right after.
just send it
Okay,
to us, and then we'll make your work a little lighter.
okay, perfect.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Like once again, so thank you so very kindly. We stayed here for over an hour and a half, and almost everyone stayed on. So you know that you really hooked to them. Just very quickly before we go, remember if you would like to receive your certificate, you must complete the end of session survey, and also there's going to be a $5 charge just to help us defray the costs. And I want you to know that coming next month, we will be doing two presentations on special education beyond compliance, uh, creating meaning for experiences for students with special needs. So look out for that. We'll be posting once we get closer to the date in February. Thank you so much for participating, and thank you for your patience. Thank you for hanging in with us. And ESI is looking forward to further collaboration across the Caribbean and across the world. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. You're getting lots of goodbyes.
auto insurance all seems the same until it's time to use it. With USAA, it's easy to file claims, schedule